Yeah, so I was specifically talking about the National Financial Literacy Standards. So, for those of you who are not familiar with standards in schools, that's the way that teachers are teaching. So, they don't necessarily teach to a book, but we have guidelines and we are required to teach to those guidelines, and that's what standards are. And we do have financial literacy standards that a lot of finance content creators didn't really know about.
Welcome to the About That Water podcast show, where we help you build strong financial habits so that you can have the confidence in spending your money, talking about money, and even making money. And I have a special person coming on today, and her name is Crystina, and she wrote her first book called Goals for Life. And I cannot wait to hear all the amazing things that she's been doing with this book. And I think you really are going to enjoy learning about different goals for life and really what it is and how you can actually utilize some of the lessons that I learned throughout her life to impact your life. So welcome to the show, Christina. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me, Anthony. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. So, I mean, you've been doing quite a bit of things, especially this year. I mean, I saw you speaking at FinCon. I was the runner with the microphone, uh, like a talk, and it was amazing. So, how was that, by the way? How, because we didn't get a chance to kind of catch up afterwards. How was that?
You're right. Did I say thank you for being my runner?
You're probably not. I was like, after that, I was like, I'm out. I gotta get my train.
Yeah, so thank you. I had a great time at FinCon. I always love being surrounded by people who get me, right? And my mission and my goal. And I think that's really important to surround yourself around people who have similar goals. So that's always great. And to be able to talk at one of my favorite conferences was just like the cherry on top. I loved it.
Nice. Yeah, because that's one of the things that like it was pretty tough thing. Can you tell everybody what you were talking about?
Yeah, so I was specifically talking about the National Financial Literacy Standards. So, for those of you who are not familiar with standards in schools, that's the way that teachers are teaching. So, they don't necessarily teach to a book, but we have guidelines and we are required to teach to those guidelines, and that's what standards are. And we do have financial literacy standards that a lot of finance content creators didn't really know about. So I was really encouraging for the finance content creators to align their work with the standards, and that way they make themselves more marketable and they can pitch themselves to schools, whether that's talking to teachers or doing after school events. I think we need more of the finance content creators within our schools supporting our educators and our families and kids.
Yeah, totally agree because that's one of the things that we do miss out on, and especially when it comes to people talking about finances, is like who are we actually writing this content for? And yes, we might think we have our good avatar, but what are the standards to really take them what they should know at this level versus where they could be going to that next level? And I appreciate you sharing that because that was one of the things that brought me back into my teaching mode. And I was
Yeah.
like, yes, the research. I
Yeah,
did not miss it.
so comprehensive too. So you might think like, oh yeah, I'm a content creator on credit. But then when you actually go through the standards, you might realize, oh, I missed that part. So I think
Mhm.
it's really important for anyone, regardless if you want to get into schools or not. I think it's important for you to take a look at the standards and see, what people have written in terms of guidelines to incorporate everything or as much as possible. I think it's great information.
Yeah. And I appreciate you bringing that up into this because you have been going through a lot in this whole year that since I've last interviewed you, and we were partying hard last year to close it out, I would say. And so, you have children. So, how has that been far as creating this, not just creating this book, but your journey and really giving back to your children and also your family? How's that been?
Yeah, so it has been the most challenging year or a year and a half for me, I went through a divorce and I wrote this book. And at the same time, I'm still trying to kind of juggle and balance this new work life, that's just a struggle to begin with, right? And
Yeah.
so I definitely found a lot of challenges, but I feel like when you set yourself with goals and you're very disciplined, then it gives you something to work for, right? And so I kind of just made sure I always align my goals with, my own values, and that kind of kept me pushing through.
Yeah. So what are those goals for the family, like your core values? Because a lot of people right now are still trying to figure out what theirs are and how to formulate that.
Yes. So naturally, in the beginning of every year, I come up with a vision board, right? And I remember the beginning of this year, me thinking to myself, because I kind of always, I'm an overachiever, right? I always try to set these high goals. And then this year, I remember kind of self reflecting, thinking, Christina, you're going through a divorce, don't do too much. And so I kind of scaled back a little bit, but then I worked on this daily habit tracker. So I printed out this habit tracker every single month, and I thought about like what is important to me, what are the values? And when it comes to my kids, it was about spending quality time. So now, as a new divorced parent where I'm splitting custody, and before I was with my kids 7 days a week, and so I thought about what's something important to me is spending that quality time. So on my habit tracker, I literally wrote spend quality time with my boys. And so, of course, I'm not checking it off every day. I might see them, even on the days that they're not with me, I still see them because they come home from the bus stop. And it might be a quick rush. I'm helping with homework for a very short period of time, but I want to make sure that the time that I am with them on my days or the weekends that I'm with them, I'm spending quality time. So I put that on my habit tracker, and I do like a quick check off. And it might sound silly, but I feel like if that's something important to you, you need to remind yourself of that. And I put, working out is really important for me too. And again, you might just say, oh, yeah, my goal is to work out 3 times a week. But if you're not actually monitoring and tracking your progress, then how do you know after you're reflecting after the quarter or after a year if you've actually achieved those goals?
Now, this is a side question. Did your parents used to read to you when you were younger?
So my mom is a big time reader. And I really did not like to read. She would try to pay me, like, Christina, I will pay you $10 to read this book. And I would like look up Cliff Notes. I was not into reading. Now, I was into math. Math was my thing, but
Mhm.
I did not like to read. And so, yeah, my mom tried to. She tried to pay me, to read, and I would do it for the money. But
Right.
there was real no intrinsic motivation for me to read. So I really didn't read until like the last few years, like maybe late 20s, early 30s is probably when I started reading.
Now that is interesting. Because usually you would think like because people were read to when they were younger, that
Mm.
they would continue on that passion forward. But it's good to know that, it didn't. And
Yeah.
everybody's a little different.
Yeah. And it's funny because my mom, she was a reader, but she was also a math person. And I used to think that that was weird. I was just like, I'm a math person. I think also because I used to hear, like, are you a math person or are you a reading person? And so I just told myself, like, no, I can't be both. And I used to look at my mom like, that's weird, but now I'm totally that person. I'm obsessed with reading. I always have to have a book.
Nice. So what book are you reading now?
So I just finished literally 2 days ago this book called Let Average Go.
Mm,
Awesome book by Joseph Washington. And it's really about, in a nutshell, it's really about there's a lot of people around us who are average, and it's very easy for us to get into this average lifestyle, right? Kind of
true.
complacent lifestyle. So he talks about breaking away from that and certain steps to do to make sure that if you want an extraordinary life, if you want something above average, you need to make sure that you are doing these things.
Nice. So what things are you planning to change in your life to kind
Yeah.
of not be average?
So I'm big on goals, but I think I need to be more reflective of my goals on a daily basis. You
Mm.
know, like I'm big on having a vision board, thinking about through the year, but I feel like I need to kind of make my goals more specific in terms of like timeline. So that's going to be my new focus.
Oh, I love that. You know, as a takeaway from a book, because a lot of people say like, "Oh, I read like 50 something books out the year," but when do you got time to implement any
Yes.
of the things that you read? And
Yes.
actually, do you go back to reread them? Because I've reread a couple books this year that I did from last year, and I was like, I still haven't taken full action, but
Mm.
I've taken, at least in my conversations, I've changed the way how I say things based on some of the books that I've
Yeah.
read. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think the same way about conferences, right? You can say, oh, that
Mm.
conference was great, but how did it impact your life? What are you doing to change? So I always make it a thing that while I'm flying back on the plane, like going back home, I'm thinking about what actions am I going to put into place, things that I've learned from that conference.
Yeah. And I was reflecting on the conversations from that conference because I was telling everybody, don't start a podcast because I felt bad. But then I thought about it again. I was like, no, I need to stand on it. The reason why I say telling a lot of people don't start a podcast was because you can just do a podcast tour first to see if you like the process and actually, or just talk to more podcasters before you actually do a deep dive. Mostly because it's like, yes, you can start it and start ugly, as a lot of people would say. But it can actually help you understand, do you have the time to
Mm,
commit? Do you have the things in life to sacrifice for what it takes to become a podcaster? Or even, like you said, writing a book, it took a lot of time, but you sacrifice, not that you weren't paying attention to your kids, you were writing it. You took a break while they doing their little break, you're writing down. And then when they back to action, you're paying attention again. Right. Yeah.
yeah.
So, and that's one of the things I think that we also forget is the sacrifices for the changes that we want to in our lives. And going back to your goals, are you willing to? Yes, you want the new thing, but what are you willing to sacrifice for it?
So true. So true.
Okay, right. Sorry to
So good.
my little soapbox.
Yes.
Uh, so the final four, obviously, I'm focusing on the sandwich generation. So how is now going through that divorce, has that had an impact on how you going to plan on taking care of your parents as they get older?
Yes. So I feel like I'm fortunate in terms of, my mom, she's the one that had actually given me the habits at a young age to be financially literate. And so I look to her for guidance. So it's not something that I necessarily struggle with. My mom has recently shared with me, maybe like a year or two ago, that she wanted to get more into real estate. And so actually, the last deal that we did a year and a half ago, I partnered with her. And so it's really important for me to, help my parents as much as possible. They're on track. But I know my mom would like to retire maybe a little bit sooner, but she also loves what she does. And so the way that I was helping her was I've done so much of my own work and I have a lot of knowledge with real estate. So it's just kind of passing on that knowledge and working with her with certain deals.
That is amazing that you still give back, and like she's receptive, because a lot of parents aren't receptive, especially to their children. It's like, come on, like listen to me for a moment.
Oh yeah. No, I feel like at this point in our life, we're more like friends. Like
Mm.
I can go to her for certain things and yeah, just like a friend, but she's also still like a mentor where I can trust for her to give me guidance. So we have a great relationship.
That's amazing. And so, this concept of family, and I love bringing back to your book now, is the goals for life, is that you have these four kids and you almost have like this bond between them, even though they have different expertise on the soccer field. So, can you just kind of give people just a little bit of background of the four characters that you have on this book?
Yes, yes. So I'm very excited to talk about this. It's very dear to my heart because I am a soccer mom. My
Okay.
two boys, they love soccer like on the regular. I'm either taking them to practice or to games every weekend. My oldest one is on a travel team, so I'm soccered out, right? And it's funny enough that I actually wrote so much of the book while I was at their practices. So but anyways, getting into the story, it's about four friends that have this passion for soccer. They love soccer so much, like they want to become professional soccer players. And similar, my boys want to do the same thing. But then they also get curious about money. And then they overhear that there's this academy that that teaches them about money, but also teaches them about soccer. And they're like, wow, this would be really cool to get into. So they apply and they get into it. And then while they are there, so in the morning, they might have soccer practice. In the afternoon, they'll have money lessons with Miss Penny. And she's teaching them real life skills that they need, related to personal finance. And so that was kind of a way for me to teach young children about it through a fictional story.
But one of the things that caught my eye when I was reading the book is that you had 90% of the kids our age play some sport, less than 10% actually understand how to handle money. What was so impactful that you had to bring this into the book?
Yes, because I think even as parents, we want to get our kids so involved, which is great. We want them to have certain social skills. We want them to be able to, love something, have a passion for something. And so we sign them up for things until they really love it. And then we spend our whole weekends, doing what they love, right? We're sacrificing a lot. And so many of us parents do this. So many kids are enrolled in at least one activity, one kind of sport. But something that is so important that we deal with on a daily basis, which is dealing with money, we don't pay enough attention to. So that's why I needed to throw that stat in there because we're so worried about like this social interaction and being physical and working with the team, which is so important, yes, but we're not having enough money conversations around the table with our children. And to me, I needed to like share that, and I really want the parents to capture that and think about it, oh, okay, how can I have more money conversations? And ideally, like I would love for parents to read the book with the children. And so this is initiating conversation around money in their household.
Yeah, because it's one of the things that I have to say that a lot of us, I don't say a lot of us, but more than likely, I know for myself, I'll speak for myself, that it was talked about, but not in a good connotation. It was
Mm.
like, hey, we ain't got it. It was always from the scarcity mindset. It wasn't of the abundance of like, hey, it's possible to have it. This is what I'm doing from a parent to actually make sure that we have food on the table, because one of the things that you brought up in here, which I thought was great, in the one sentence or paragraph that was actually tying both soccer and money together, is like, this is from Miss Penny. She was saying, just as in soccer, where you pass the ball, planning moves and strategizing is essential. She also, Miss Penny began, and so is planning where your money goes. It's called a budget. And I was like, this is the sentence for this whole concept, because we have to know where our money is going in order for us to really hone in on what we really want in life. And I greatly appreciate you throwing that in there.
Oh, yay. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So as a soccer mom, deal with all the sports and obviously deal with all the money. What is the next thing for you? I mean, you've been doing so many great things.
Yes. So I have a goal in mind. I really want to impact as many children and families as possible. And so, really, I want to be able to take this book with me and be able to speak at schools because I feel like by speaking at schools, that would be the most impactful way to reach the most amount of kids at one period. And so, that's really my goal. And that's where I see myself, in the future, the near future, within the next 5 years, is really growing in that area.
Okay, so we're gonna take so people can get the book. Where can they get the book at for right now?
Yes. So it's not officially launched until November 21st, but then it'll be on Amazon. It
Okay.
currently is on Barnes and Noble right now. So if you wanted to grab it there, but I am going to do an official launch on November 21st. So
Okay.
maybe by the time people are hearing this, it's already on Amazon. So you can grab it there.
Nice. Because I would definitely would like to have a physical copy,
I
so
got
we
you.
can take pictures with it and party it up. Because I think this is amazing. Like you're really taking a lot of the structure that we're haven't been taught. At least some of the basic stuff, like basic budgeting, what is credit, what is debt, and how to utilize it. And I have to say, this book is really taking a deep dive into that, but also gamifying it so that it's something that's fun that you can actually teach your kids with that. Is there going to be like a workbook follow up with this for the kids?
So funny because I've been told that I should have a workbook. So maybe that's next. I'll work on it.
All right, so this is obviously the future, so we don't know what it holds, but we're gonna say let's lock this in. I think you got this.
All right. All right.
All right. Man, I'm so excited that you wrote your first book. Like, how does it feel to have the first off complete the finish line of writing this thing?
Yeah, it was a lot of work behind it because I really wanted to tie in soccer with money. So there was a lot of thinking about it. Also, I'm a soccer mom, but I never played soccer growing up. So there were certain things that I remember asking my kids, what is this kick called again? Or what are certain plays? Like, I see you guys do it, but what are these? Because I wanted to make it very relatable. So the soccer fans that are reading it, they're like they can picture in their head how this story is moving.
Mhm.
So there was so much thought behind it, and my oldest son has helped me a lot with it. So he would give me certain ideas, I would read it. He actually told me, like, I want to be the first one to read it. So like there
Right.
was a time that, like, every as the chapter would go by, I would read it to him. He would give me his input. And so really my book is dedicated to him, because he also loves, like, children's books, graphic novels, that kind of thing. And, like I said, he's a soccer fan. And so, yeah, I just needed to shout him out too.
Nice. Did you use the kids' names in the book too, or they just kind of?
So, no, I didn't. At first, I thought about it, but then I was like, no, let me change it. I did start off with it, but I do have a dedication page for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate doing that. That's so cool. Man, I'm so excited for you. I mean, I really can't wait to see what is next for you and what's in store because I'll be rooting for you on the sidelines. And if there's anything else that we can always hear at the About That Wallet community can kind of help support you, by all means, just let us know. We'll do our best.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate you.
You're welcome. All right. So you ready for the final four questions? They're going to be slightly modified because I had you interviewed last year.
I'm ready.
All righty. Number one, what does wealth mean to you?
Yes. I think that wealth, it's not all about having this money, but it's more about having freedom and having options. So I feel like that you might have a lot of money, but if you don't enjoy the things that you do, if you're not happy in life, then you are not wealthy. I don't think that in order to say that you're wealthy, that means you're completely retired. You don't have to work. You can still be working and enjoying life, enjoying the things that you do. Because so many times, like, I also know people who have retired early and then they're like, and now what? So I want to make sure that yes, it might sound nice to like chill on the beach being retired early, but like, I'm the type of person that I have to stay busy, right? And I want to do things that I really enjoy. And so that might be still speaking, like doing assemblies, talking to kids and families. And because I have a passion for educating, like to me, that's like the true wealth to be able to have that freedom and choices to do what I want.
Number 2, what was your worst money mistake?
Yes. So, my worst money mistake. That's a great question. I would say when I got to the point of making a lot more money,
Mm-hmm.
I let that lifestyle creep come in. So, yeah, I was working a lot, making more money than I ever had. Also, because I had like multiple part time jobs. And I was like, oh, this money is coming in. And I remember looking at my credit card the end of that year and me thinking, I spent this much on like Amazon and on the credit card. And like, what do I have to show? I don't even know. So it was kind of like a year. And then I reflected on that. And then I think it's really important for you to examine your budget, right? Because at that point, I was just like, I'm just making a lot of money, right? Never made this kind of money before. And I really wasn't budgeting that time period.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important for not only for you to look at your budget, but for you to analyze what your values are. Is it important for you to, eat out? Like, is that something like you really want to do? For me, per se, it's not. Like, I actually rather have home meals, And so I'm thinking about like, as I'm analyzing, do I really want to spend this amount of money on eating out? Because that's not something I really value? So kind of like analyzing that part.
Alrighty. Number 3. Now this one's modified because you already answered this one last time, but this one is, what book got you back into reading?
So I love the book Psychology of Money.
Mm.
It's one of my favorite, it's probably my favorite money book because it really talks about the history. So sometimes you think that your way of thinking is right, but it really depends on the person next to you, their background, their upbringing, their parents. Like they have a whole different perspective. And so I think you need to be cognizant of that. I think you need to respect other people's perspectives. So it kind of gives you that history and that psychology of why people have different thoughts about money. And so that triggered more reading about financial literacy.
Mm. The last question, well, the fourth question, what is your favorite dish to make?
Oh, food?
Yeah.
Mm, I would say pasta.
Mm.
I don't make pasta so often. And
Okay.
so that's like a recent thing. I like exploring different things with pasta Italian food. So that's my new thing.
All right. I
Yes.
like that. So the last question of the show, where could people find out more about you?
Yes. So I'm on LinkedIn, but I'm more active on Instagram. My handle is She Runs the Numbers. And so you can send me a message there, and I would definitely respond to you because I'm definitely more active on IG.
Yeah. You're very active. All right. Well, Christina, thank you so much for coming on to About That Wallet podcast, where we are trying to do our best, one interview at a time, so that people can take action on the activities and the knowledge that they've gained. And by all means, listeners, if you made it this far, you definitely have to, you should have already went to Amazon by now, started looking up Goals for Life and getting the book today. So by all means. And then when you reach out to our on Insta, let her know that you found her from the About That Water podcast. Be like, hey, I just heard your episode. It was amazing. Give her a shout out. And thank you so much. I just want to continue on giving you amazing praise for all the work that you've been doing and all the work that you continue to do. Thank you so much, Crystina.
Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate your support, your friendship, all of that.
Oh, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
First book, by the way, and it's called, oh gosh, I had it. Please tell me, don't tell me, because I was just looking at it. I gotta cut all this out. Great.
Goals for life.
Goals. Okay. All right.